Hey everyone, welcome back to the Derick podcast. We've got a first today, and it's kind of cool because we're having a lot of firsts. Having 20, this is episode 21. So we got a first today. We're going to do a Zoom meeting, Zoom podcast. So this should be pretty fun. Mallory and our guest have worked multiple hours trying to set this up. So thanks, Mallory. And I'll introduce our guest today. Our guest is Shane Taylor. How's it going, man?
How's it going, brother? Everything's good, man.
Good. This should be fun. We kind of connected because I think you had followed us or you'd reached out to the podcast, and we've been open from day one about bringing on new guests. As fun as it is to have, my boys that I grew up with high school here, and
Yeah,
shooting the breeze is great, but we're trying to kind of mix it up, bring in some new energy, bring in some new information. And this will be cool because I think everyone we've had on is like a Southern Utah home base,
hmm
background. So, I mean, this is as far away from the country as you can get.
yeah.
So,
Miami, Florida.
Miami, Florida. So,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe I know we just kind of did a little rundown before we started, um, but maybe give me some background on you. Um, Maybe a little bit, like set the story up. Um,
Yeah.
a
All
little
right,
bit of
man.
childhood, family, that kind of thing.
All right. So, name's Shane Taylor. Born and raised in Miami, Florida. 28 years old currently. Had an amazing childhood growing up. Can't complain about that. Parents were around. Always at the baseball games with my brother, sister, and me. Pretty good childhood growing up, man. And then as I started getting into the workforce, you kind of get lost and caught up with life, and kind of got into construction in early ages of life. Good old country boy. I like to consider myself a country boy. Um, but kind of getting into construction life, wasn't happy with that. And then moving forward a couple years, I kind of fell into cutting hair. I became a barber, I became a hairstylist, and I've been doing that for the past 10 years. And as the new company that I'm building now, MBS Repair, is starting to grow, that is kind of taking a back seat, man. I had to let go of all my employees because I converted the salon into the new business. And now I'm literally cutting the corner of the office space, and the rest of the space is now dedicated to the full business. And it's kind of been my new driver and my new passion. And that's kind of where it's taking me in the direction of life where I'm going now as far as the health and wellness industry.
It's kind of a crazy shift, huh? When you're cutting
Yeah.
hair, regardless of what it is, you've kind of found a niche, you found something you enjoy doing, and then something else comes up on your plate, and you like scrap it's not the right word, but you have to make room for the new thing because you can see the direction and you can see where it's going to go. So you kind of have to move the other thing aside and replace it. I'm sure I've done it, so I know
Yeah.
it's a weird transition.
But I don't think anything happens by default, man. Like I think everything happens for a divine reason. I was in the hair industry for 10 years, and we spoke a little bit about this. But being in the hair industry for 10 years, man, you get all different walks of life. You get, you know, the people that I worked with, anywhere from construction workers all the way to porn stars. Like I've cut them all.
Yeah,
So being in that walks of life, you kind of learn different people's habits, thoughts, actions, just different personalities. And I think that was part of the journey, kind of leading to where I am today, and is actually serving people and not making them feel better on the outside, but now more internal.
that's awesome. Uh, Being able to get in on someone's, well, we'll get into it. I don't want to jump
Yeah.
ahead. We'll get into it. Um, so I think we're going to kind of more focus on your journey and then what the business you're doing now, and then we'll probably spend the most time on what you're doing now. So
Okay.
you've got a cool story. You kind of just gave me a couple talking points, but let's just dive right into that. Um, so, well, I'll let you do it. It's your story. Why don't you start
Yeah.
off what you're telling us?
All right, brother. So pretty much, being in the hair industry, cutting all these years, it's a very fast-paced lifestyle. You cut, cut, cut. You don't have breaks in between clients, so you just scarf down food. That kind of led me to being severely overweight. So now I'm as fit as I can be. I'm at a solid 165. But it wasn't always like that. I ballooned all the way up to 220 pounds at my heaviest. So I was considered morbidly obese for my height. And dealing with a lot of stress, financial stressors and stuff like that, and not making the right decisions in my younger years led me into some financial debt. So adding that to being unhealthy kind of led me to being sick in 2019. So in 2019, my body started to shut down. I started suffering from severe anxiety and depression, and I didn't understand why. And my girlfriend at the time, which is now my wife, I'm telling her, something's wrong with me. I don't feel right on a day-to-day basis. Like, mentally, I'm not here. Um, and I started going to doctors, and doctors just kept shooting me away and telling me, look, the blood work looks fine. Everything looks good. And they told me the words that nobody ever wants to hear as a patient is, I think it's all in your head. So they try to refer me out to psychiatrists, psychologists, to deal with my anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
At the time I was having severe gastrointestinal problems as well. So they sent me to a gastroenterologist, and I didn't have insurance at the time because I was self-employed and everything. And he said, look, we did the basic stool test and everything seems fine. And I'm like, man, you guys are not listening to me. Something's wrong. So they kind of pushed me out to the side. They wanted to run a bunch of tests that were going to be like $12,000. I didn't have that money at the time. I was struggling financially. And, in that time, I kind of felt hopeless and lost, and not getting the answers that I wanted. And I kind of succumbed to it. And my sickness started taking over. And I'm like, I'm on my way out. It got to one of my lowest points where I actually wrote to all my family members. I was never suicidal, but I had written notes to every single one of my family members. Hey, I don't think I'm going to make it. I've been trying to tell people, but nobody's listening to me. And, I just want you to let you know that I didn't give up, that I wasn't trying to stop fighting, but I'm not going to make it. My heart rate would drop down into the 30s. It was one of the craziest things that I experienced. My blood pressure would just drop randomly, and I'm like, you guys are not listening to me. Something's wrong. So I took it upon myself to kind of self-diagnose me. I started meeting Dr. Google. And through that journey, kind of figuring out more things about like the human body, I kind of became obsessed with it to the point where I was having sticky notes all over my computer, testimonials, comparison, analysis, research papers, all these things. And I was kind of like a practitioner at that point. Just because I was so obsessed, I'm like, look, something's wrong, and I'm going to figure this out. So I try to bring the information I got to my primary, and she's like, look, I don't think that's medically necessary. You should really go see a psychologist. I think it's too far at this point. And I'm like, no, like I have some tangible evidence here. So I then ended up looking around for different people, trying to take tests and stuff like that. I finally landed upon a functional medicine practitioner. And I kind of owe this woman my life, because I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for her. She listened to me. I told her, this is everything I think I have. We ran the test, and turns out I was right. Every single test came back positive. I had a thing called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, also known as SIBO, where it's bacteria localized in the small intestines of your body, which then led to systemic candida, which is a yeast bacteria that's only found in the stomach, but it had spread to my bloodstream at this point. Also, because my body was so over colonized with this bacteria, it then led to liver toxicity and pancreatic insufficiency.
Dang.
Yeah, so I was dealing with all that, and that puts such a stressor on the mind. Now in the health field that I am, there's a huge connection between the gut and the brain, and kind of figuring all that out. I was so malabsorbed from nutrients because of the bacteria that was in my stomach. The bacteria I had in my stomach, and here's the crazy part, is that bacteria is only found in heavy alcoholics. Mind you, I'm not a person that drinks. But there's a syndrome called autobrewery syndrome, when you have too low levels of stomach acid, that the food you eat, and I was big at the time, so I was eating a lot of bread and sugars and pastas and stuff like that. So what is beer made out of? It's made mostly out of yeast.
Right.
So I'm eating a high yeast diet, and since my stomach acid level was too low, my food would not break down, so it would kind of ferment and brew its own beer. So autobrewery syndrome.
Huh.
So it kind of gives you this feeling like you feel drunk and spaced out all the time, and you've never taken a sip of alcohol. So the bacteria I had was called Klebsiella pneumoniae, and that's only found in alcoholics. And they're like, do you drink? And I'm like, no. And they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, no, I don't drink. And my wife could attest to that. I've never been a drinker. So yeah, man. And then because of the malnutrition and everything like that, I was deprived of so many vital nutrients that feed the brain, that I started experiencing memory loss, to the point where I couldn't drive my car for 6 months because the minute I got out of my neighborhood, I would be so confused as to where I am. I started forgetting my wife's name. There was days I couldn't even walk to the mailbox because I wouldn't know how to get back home, and I would have a full-blown panic attack. And I would have to calm myself down at the mailbox, literally sit down at the mailbox and wait till the panic attack to pass. So then I could walk back home and just be like, okay, remember how you get home. Remember how you get home. And it was like very scary times for me, man. I started experiencing this thing called DPDR as well, which is depersonalization, derealization, which is kind of a psychosis thing when the body's too much under stress, that when your mind can't comprehend the amount of stress that's going on internally and mentally and emotionally, it kind of just disconnects from itself and it says, I don't want to deal with this no more. So you kind of feel this disconnection between reality and you feel like you're walking in a dream state 24/7. And that's very scary because I remember October 19th, 2019 to be exact, we're sitting down with my family at dinner and I look at my wife and I go, there's something wrong with me. I know I'm alive, but I don't feel like I'm here right now. And she's like, you're probably just stressed out. I'm like, yeah. But then it started getting into like that psychosis state where I wouldn't even feel like I was awake. Um, so that was like kind of the beginning of my journey. And then working with a functional medicine practitioner, we started all holistic healing. I got big into meditation, breathing, understanding the body and everything like that. And I got obsessed with it. So I ended up getting my certification in personal training and health and nutrition, and then also life coaching, because the mental component, if I didn't have that, it wouldn't have got me through to where I am today. And I'm proud to say this, that I am on day 722 of journaling every single day since I got sick. And it's something I would carry on for the rest of my life. And I plan on showing my son to do as well. So it was about a year recovery, but coming out of that, I questioned everything that we're taught in society as far as mental, physical, and emotional health. And I kind of saw that it was a lie. You know, things that are considered healthy to you, you could be eating, but could actually be harmful and effective to your body. So for example, for me, I was eating arugula, and those certain salads and leafy greens was actually causing inflammation in my body. And just studying the human body on a mental, physical, and emotional level. And that's kind of where I developed MBS Repair, which is mind, body, soul repair, where it's a whole new approach to holistic health. And it questions everything that has to do with health in modern society and Western medicine. And a lot of people don't like it, but I literally have people that have been going to psychologists for years, psychiatrists for years, doctors for years that I'm working with, and they're telling me I'm off my meds. They're telling me, you know, you're onto something that I've never thought about, things like that. I've had people that are on the brink of suicide, and I get on a call with them, and they're saying, for the first time in 4 years, I actually feel like there's hope for me. So it's, I know I'm onto something radically different and so unorthodox, but I think it's the change that this world's needed. And like I said, nothing happens for a reason. I mean, everything happens for a reason. So kind of learning all the different personality types over the past 10 years has kind of led me to be a better communicator with people and how to get my message in across where it pushes the boundaries, but in an easement way, where I like to say it's kind of like taking a fresh breath of air for the first time in your life. Because you come out feeling like, wow, that was so different and so intense, but I feel like I could begin my life now.
Awesome. Dude, I
I know
commend you,
that was a
man.
little lengthy, but
No, you were flowing, so I didn't want to cut you off. I commend you for that, man. I'm sure, well, I've got a couple notes down. I would think that when you're going through the doctors, getting passed around from doctor to doctor, I mean, that at 26, am I do my math right? So you're 26 and you might be in the darkest place of your life at 26, getting passed around. And then I kind of tied this together, and correct me if I'm wrong, but everyone's trying to get you to go get therapy. Yeah. And then by doing your own research and trying to find out what's going on, that was therapy for you. That was kind of trying to find out what was going on, and you were doing it for yourself. And then when you found the holistic practitioner you're working with now, it was kind of like that eye-opening experience for it. Was that still in 2019?
That was in 2019, beginning of 2020.
Okay. So I've touched on this a handful of times in the last year. 2020 was a shizzy year for a lot of people.
Yep.
And it was probably the worst year for a lot of people.
Mm.
It was my best year I ever had.
I would say mine as well.
Yeah, I feel like we could connect on that for sure. I mean, we
Mm.
built our dream house. We had our first kid. I was opening a new business. All my other businesses were moving forward and thriving. And then, so as you're sitting here talking about this, and then I assumed that that was in 2020. And I'm sure the first of it, right, when you're going through some of that recovery was
Yeah.
not easy.
Mm.
But the mental strength that you had to have to keep pushing forward, I mean, it just shows the fortitude that you have. And I mean, I think that's clear just talking to you.
Appreciate that.
But so you were married. You have one kid coming on the way, first
Well,
kid.
and married, not we're married.
Yeah,
And married.
yeah. You were married. You're still married. Currently
Yeah.
still married.
Yeah.
And then you have a kid coming any day.
Any day now.
That's
Any day
exciting,
now.
man. You're
Yeah.
jacked.
Oh, I'm pumped, man. Like, I want to implement things with him that, my parents did an amazing job raising me and my brother and sister. And but in a Hispanic household, mental health is not, I know I don't look Hispanic, but in a Hispanic household, mental health is not something that's spoken about. And that's something I want to implement in my son from the very get-go.
Yeah.
Worry about this first, because everything in life only comes from this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you hit it on the head too, where you talked about hairstylists for 10 years kind of got you, opened up your eyes, if that's the best way to put it. And then not only that, it allowed you to experience different people, different personalities, but it matured you through that 10 years of doing that. I mean, would you
Yes.
agree? Yeah. And so for anyone out there listening, like that's a part of it though. I mean, be it 28 and having the success that you've had, you've really had success the last year and a half.
Yeah.
Right. But a lot of that I think came from, the personalities you learned, or got to know people, the stuff that you learned through those 10 years. I think that's cool. I wanted to point that out as well.
Appreciate that.
So now we're doing mind, body, and soul, right? So kind of obviously, so we know where that started, but let's talk about like the transition into doing that out of hair. So when you were doing hair, did you run, like you had the shop, like the shop was yours?
Yeah, I had a full-blown barbershop slash salon. We did male and female hair. I had 3 employees, and this was something I became obsessed with, that I was literally willing to throw away 10 years of something I built, because I felt that this was definitely needed.
Yeah.
I always said that hair was kind of like I said earlier, it was the kind of the catalyst that brought me to where I am today. So owning the shop, I had the flexibility in order to take it down and rebuild the new business inside of it.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. And when you're saying you're becoming obsessed, you have to. I mean, that's something people need to understand. You have to be obsessed with it. And that's something with your family life that your wife has to understand. And I assume she does if you've already been doing it 10 years. Like something that it takes a team to do that as well. So props to your wife. I mean, I've never met her, but I commend her as well. That's great, because I'm sure she's a big part of it, supporting everything else. Does she work? Does she have a job?
Yeah, she's a BSA analyst, man. But going back to commending her, like if it wasn't for her, I don't think I would be where I am today. And I know that's a cliche answer and everything like that, but wholeheartedly, like that woman stood by me on my darkest days. At the beginning, she thought she was one of the people saying, babe, like you should really go see someone, like this is getting bad. And she just saw it as anxiety and depression. And I'm like, no, like there's something else going on. And it wasn't until like, I literally had a lab test that I hadn't even taken yet. And I was just holding it in my hands, and I just broke down crying. I think that was the moment it kind of clicked for her and saying, okay, this is more than just, mental health.
Yeah.
This is physical health. And then she's a trooper, because in 2019 her father ended up passing away. So she was dealing with the emotions of that, and then also me dealing with the emotions of being sick and everything. And she had so much on her plate, because at those moments I couldn't even drive myself to work. Like I had to tell people come to the house and cut their hair, and even those times I was canceling people because I couldn't stand up for too long because I would get too dizzy.
Hmm.
So she kind of supported me, financially, kept the roof over their head and everything. So if it wasn't for her, I definitely wouldn't be here today. So like I give everything to her,
That's
and
awesome.
that's kind of why I'm so obsessed with making this a multi-million-dollar business, is to give her back a speckle of what she gave me.
Yeah. Yeah. You put a little bit into me, or not a little bit, but you invested into me and now let me take care of you.
Yeah.
100%. I can feel that, dude. I really feel that from you. I'm I want to meet her now. She sounds amazing.
Appreciate it.
Um, so then you transition would you call it a hair salon?
Yeah, hair
Yeah.
salon.
So you transition the hair salon into mind, body, and soul. So are you a brick and mortar business then? I mean, are
So
customers coming in and out or?
no, so we do everything via online, just
Okay.
so it's more reasonable for our clients, especially with COVID, if people don't feel comfortable coming in. Um, but we kind of keep everything online, but we make the experience very wonderful. Like when you sign up with one of our programs, you actually get a gift package sent to you. So it's kind of like a birthday present. And we always say this is a start to your new life. So we want to change your birthday to this day whenever they sign up to the program, because we really truly feel that we give people their life back.
I like that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of thought that you've put into that to be able to,
Mhm.
that's cool. I keep on going back to like, dang, dude, you're 28. Like you've matured in life further than 28. Like your body
Yeah,
age is 28, dude, but your mind is a lot further.
I get that all the time. I
Yeah.
feel like I feel like I live multiple lives in this life, on a spiritual level, like getting deep into my spiritual realm and figuring out the mind, body, soul aspect. Like I wanted to give people. I'm working on the name, the modern Buddha, because I just feel like that's where I'm at in my life. Like, the amount of peace that's flown over me in the past year and a half, going from complete terror and not knowing if I'm going to be alive the next day, to being where I am now, that I could be in the most chaotic storm and still remain calm and find that sense of peace and center, that me and my wife's relationship has become the best it's ever been. Even since the honeymoon phase, it's even better than then.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of communication we have with each other, the amount of trust, loyalty, respect, and then that goes way beyond my wife to everybody around me, the people that I just bring in towards me, just because of my thoughts are so provoking. My friends that at the beginning said, I literally told them, I'll never forget, I will make a living off of helping people, and they told me, yeah, good luck with that.
Right.
And look at where I am now.
Yeah. I mean, 100% you're doing that.
Mm.
That's awesome. And it's cool that you've recognized that as well. And the journaling, I'm sure, helps a lot. And
Yeah.
and so when you said that, I'm not a writer, I'm not a reader. I'm more of an audiobook type of
Yeah.
person. But this is my journaling. Like when I
Mm.
do this, I've had this conversation with some guests that, like my son William, um, if like God forbid, if something ever happens to me, he can go
Mm.
back and have these videos of me having conversations with people and see my mannerisms and how I speak. And I mean, because he's not going to
Yeah.
remember any of that at 1 year old, right?
100%.
And so yeah, it's cool, man. I mean, you should think about doing this. I think that you would kill it on this, doing
Yeah,
a platform like
I've
this.
tried, man. It's just the amount of work I'm trying to get out now. It's like we spoke earlier. We're trying to take this into the corporate world. We're
Yeah.
really trying to make a shift and shake the bush, in this industry, because there's so many false information out there, and like I said, what we teach is not orthodox. It's completely unorthodox, um, and it's shaking envelopes, man. We even have the capability of doing certain lab testing that the regular doctors can't do
Hmm.
with third-party lab testing. So we could test for comprehensive stool analysis test, which is the test you wouldn't get out of regular GI. They do a basic stool test, but in our comprehensive stool test, we could test for parasites, different strands of bacteria, the efficiency of the pancreas and the absorption of nutrients through there. We do organic acids test, that if you were to ask the doctor, can I have this? They'll be like, I don't think that's medically necessary, because it actually gives you answers. And if you get the answers you want, you're healed. So we strive on telling our clients, patients, whatever you want to call them, we strive on saying, we don't want you as a client. Like our goal is to get rid of you as a client
Sure.
because we want to give you your life back. Our goal is not to keep you like the medical industry and hold you. Our goal is to implement the proper tools, modalities, and methods that are going to carry you way beyond here and into your family's life so you have generational health mentally, physically, and emotionally. So that is our goal and how we're trying to strive to get into these things, into different fields that we're working on.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's go through a couple things that you guys offer on your website. I did click through there, so tell us what your website is real quick, and then we'll have a link and all of that in the bio to the podcast as well. But tell us the website.
So the website is mbsrepair.com. Just basic MBS Repair, no www, just MBS Repair. And like I said, when you come into the program, we focus mostly on mental, physical, and emotional health. So mentally, we understand that the gut has a huge influence on the brain. The food that we eat, the insulin levels spiking, the bacteria that we have can cause depression and anxiety in the brain. It's inflammation in the brain. So we kind of educate people on this of saying, pay attention to the food you're eating, consciously living, not just subconsciously living, and, seeing how different foods affect you and stuff like that. And being the gauge of your own health. Like the only way you can tell you're truly healthy is not by taking a pill, is based on, I wake up in the morning and I feel refreshed.
100%.
Like that's a true measurement in health. So we educate them on that. And I'm a big component. And this is where we get into the unorthodox coaching, is that anxiety and depression are no more than your best friends. And people look at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? Excuse me for my language.
You're good.
But I'm like, yeah, anxiety and depressions are my best friends, man. They're the only people that told me, hey, something's wrong, pay attention. What do your best friends do? Hey, let's go to the bar, man. Let's forget about your problems. Let's go to the party. Yo, you broke up with your girl? I have a chick for you. Those aren't real friends. And that kind of opened to my eyes, like, who's really here for me? Who's fighting in my corner? And I'm a huge component of turning the negative into a positive. So I believe anxiety and depression are better guiders. Anxiety, depression, and pain, they're better compasses to living a fulfilled life, because they're the only ones going to tell you. And it's obvious, if you're feeling depressed, obviously you're doing something that is not right, whether that be mentally, physically, or emotionally. And if you feel depressed, but you have everything that you want in life, well, let's take a look on the inside. Let's see what's going on in there that's causing the depression, and just questioning everything. So that's the mental aspect that we kind of focus on. When it comes into the body aspect, we want to do the lab testing so we could see what's going on the inside, but we also implement movement, getting blood flow, oxygen to the brain. We also educate people on how just certain postures, rounding the shoulders, hunching forward, can actually trigger an anxiety attack, because when you're in this stance, you have shallow breathing, which replicates someone that's actually in the fight or flight mode, which increases levels of cortisol. So you could be on the computer working, and then you get an anxiety attack out of nowhere, and you're like, well, what's wrong with me? Nothing was happening. So we kind of educate people on, like, posture is a huge thing when it comes to getting that blood flow and the oxygen running through your lungs. So you reduce the oxidative stress that's going on in your body that increases cortisol. And then soul aspect, which is one of my favorite, is called life mapping. We take the negative and turn it into a positive by actually planning out a strategic, what do you want to acquire for your life? And then most people think, well, I got to do this. No, we give them a whole different approach on how to attack that. A lot of people think the byproduct of their success is getting more money or getting financial, getting more money or getting like relationships, girls, cars, money, whatever it be, social stigmas. And we show them that the byproduct of their success is actually the investment in their own self.
Right.
That you could have everything that you wanted in life once you invest into yourself. And I like to think I'm a testament of that, because going where I was severely overweight. I was morbidly obese. I was financially poor. Me and my girl's relationship wasn't that good at the beginning. And now, because I became obsessed with the best version of myself, I'm in the best shape that I've ever been. I have energy where I see my friends that are dads can't even keep up with their kids. So I can't wait for my son to be here, because I know I'm going to have the energy to run with him. Me and my wife's relationship is amazing. My financial situation is amazing. And it's all because I didn't focus on the outside. I mostly focused on the inside and living from the inside out instead of the outside in.
Yeah, that's a very great way to put it. I mean, I couldn't have put it in better words. People need to focus more on themselves before they can fix the outside world or someone else or a relationship or really anything. But there's a lot. I'm just trying to unpack everything you just said, but they're being able to look inside and see what needs to be fixed, or what needs to be fixed probably isn't the right word, but what needs to be understood about what's going on in your head or in your body, which is what you guys do. I mean, that's 100% of what you're saying. And I'm just having all these things run through my head about all the years people have talked to me about the issues with other people, or the issue they're having in a relationship, and it's always like, you've got to get right before you can have any of those changes in your life. And I talked to a guy the other day at my store that came in, and he was smoking weed. He was drinking. He was just doing what he wanted. You know, he was comfortable, which is like, that's a swear word for me, is comfortable. Anybody that's comfortable needs to get uncomfortable real quick, or there'll never be anything in their life. That's that's how I think. But he came in and was kind of talking, and he said, you know, I quit smoking. I quit drinking. I knew I needed to have a better relationship with it was a girlfriend, at the time. And he says, once I started realizing that I can't fix our relationship until I fix myself, everything clicked. Yeah. And now he's, I mean, I'm pretty sure he's a millionaire. And like, he's doing pretty good. He's had a good relationship with his wife and kids now. And it really told me, like, the depression side of it, or the mental health of it, you've got to correct yourself before you can improve a situation for yourself or someone else. And I'm talking more of like the mental side of it. And I've never really thought about the eternal, like your body side of it, like what you've been talking about. And I already know the answer to this because we talked a second ago about it before we started. But if someone could change one thing in their life right now to be healthier, physically, mentally, and spiritually, or anything, you got to fix that first. What's the number one thing that more people can do to be that way?
And I love this answer. Be curious enough to know the best version of yourself. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
Just be curious enough and I wake up every day, where can I be? How much can I be better than I am today?
Yeah.
Or that I was yesterday, and on all aspects. And just be curious enough to know how to get there. And that's going to lead you, and question everything. And like I said, this is another unorthodox thing, but I think people, like you said, should live very selfishly. But in the means of, if we live selfishly, it's actually being selfless to those around us, because when we could fill up our own cup, we're giving from the overflow.
Yeah, 100%. I had this talk with my mother-in-law the other day about being selfish. And I told her that. I said, I think my wife and I's relationship works really well because at times she's selfish and I can allow her to be selfish. And I'm more selfish than she is in different situations, but she allows me to be that. And that's a lot of the reasons why we work, because like, you got to have those wins. You have to have that mindset. You have to be able to do that. And you shouldn't always be that way, but there should be situations. And I think the key to that is controlling it, though. If you can control those moments and switch back and forth, I think that's the important part of it.
It's funny you say that, because I talk about that a lot, in the sense of, like, with my wife, you know, I always tell her, if it can't be solved right now and I can't do nothing about it, I can't worry about this right now. And I tell her that. And funny enough is, I brought her attention because we want to buy these tickets to this Christmas thing for the baby when he's born. But we allow each other to have that space to be selfish. So I message her, hey, what about those tickets? And she goes, I can't worry about this right now. And I go, all right.
I gotcha.
Sounds good. Sounds good. But
That's
it's like, awesome. We allow each other to be that. So we give each other the space to, you know, be who we need to be without being bashed or judged against each other. So I think it's very healthy being selfish.
Yeah. Yeah. And, comfortable, man. What are your thoughts on that? I'm very, very strong on, and I need people to understand where I'm coming from this. I'm not saying that like you just need to drag your knees in the mud for the rest of your life. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I mean, I don't understand people that don't want to push forward and don't want to push the boundaries and push the limits, whether that is physically, financially, whatever it is, relationally, any of that. If you're comfortable right now, I have a problem with you. And and I say this stuff to my friends all the time, like if you're comfortable, that's the worst enemy to moving forward.
So I'm going to answer the question by going on the side of it.
Okay.
And you know, this is where we get it. It's such a delicate approach when dealing with people that are comfortable. I don't think that they're comfortable. I think that they're in such immense pain that they don't know how to get out of it. And then they give themselves a false sense of delusion of saying it's okay to be here. And you know, in studying people and getting to know different personalities, one thing that I noticed that, and I couldn't understand, and I was asking my wife this question every day: why do people do what they do if they know that the goal is beneficial to them? Why do they continue to do what they do? And I asked my clients every time they sat in the chair, I go, hey, what is the biggest struggle you're going through right now? And they're like, you know, I'm trying to lose weight. So if you know that eating healthy will get you there, why don't you do it? Or another one, you know, me and my wife are fighting. If you know going to a counselor, a family counselor will get you a better relationship, or asking your wife why she's mad at you will get you there, why do you do it? If you know the lack of communication is the reason why you're not getting the things that you want in life, why don't you do it? And so I became obsessed with that question. Why do people not do if they know it's beneficial to them? And what I realized is that it's not that they're comfortable. They're just in such pain that they kind of dilute themselves as thinking that this is okay. And I was like, okay, how do we get people out of this state? And the thing is that when you're so comfortable because of your pain, what people expect is that the equivalent of the healing process should be that equal to their pain. And when it doesn't match that, well, what's the point of continuing any further? You know, you don't go to the gym. And I tell my wife this all the time, because she's like, oh my God, you're so strict on your diet. I'm like, no, do you think I like eating healthy? Do you think I like going to the gym? No, but I understand it gives me the energy and mental clarity to be the best husband, to be the best person in my business, to be the best worker. Because I like to think of myself still as a worker, even though I'm an owner.
Sure.
It allows me to be there for someone that's fallen on the street and have empathy for them so I can hold them up. It allows me to be a better person. I go, no person in their right mind will put themselves through torture. Like it's ridiculous, but I understand that being uncomfortable will get us there. But what I tell people, I'm like, you're never going to feel good enough to move out of that comfort zone. And for me, like recently I went to, I was like, I got comfortable and I said, I need to try something radically different. So I went to join a cycling bar that's around my house. My first class, I had a full-blown panic attack during the class because I was so out of my comfort zone, and these people are just doing exercises on their bike and I'm running, and I'm like, my heart's pounding. I'm like, how the hell? Okay, position 2, position 3. And I'm like, so I start hyperventilating. And I'm like, okay, I'm like, just calm down. And I just go over everything that I teach my clients. This is a new environment. The anxiety that you're feeling now is a direct response to what you're feeling. It's okay. The intense emotion that you're feeling right now is because you're around people you don't know. Yeah. You're freaking out. I go, this all makes sense. And in a second, my anxiety disappeared and I wrote out through the whole class. So that's why I tell people you need to embrace pain as the motivator to get you out of comfortability, because being comfortable and expecting these little momentums will never get you there. But you could actually use pain as jet fuel to shoot you out of the position that you're in when you truly understand it and feel it on a whole level. Yeah. And this is what I help my clients do is we're not going to focus on the positivity. We're going to focus on the negativity and use that as power.
Yeah. Focus in the negative energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's
concentrate it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's Andy Frisella talks a lot about that when you talk. Do you follow Andy Frisella at all?
Yeah. You kind of remind me of him with the beard and the hat.
Dude, I love that. Thank you. Hopefully Andy will hear that. Are you, do you do any, I know you coach yourself, but are you in, so they do Arate Syndicate, him and Ed Milet. Are you in any of that type of stuff?
No, I am in like, I like to be my own study,
Okay.
as weird as that sounds. So
No, I'd understand it, dude.
I like to learn from my failures. So if I don't help a client out, I literally come back to them. What did you feel I didn't help you with?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to figure it out for you.
Well, it's the fastest way to move forward, right? Yeah, I was
Mhm.
just curious. Anyway, we brought up Andy. I was just curious. I've
Yeah.
been doing that the last like 7 months in the Arte, and
Mhm.
I mean, it's really cool. I feel like it's a lot bigger. Like it's more wide variety of things that I deal with now. But I'm
Mhm.
trying to like take notes and write those things down and store them in my head, thinking, okay, well, one day I may have to deal with this.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's not something I ever think I'll have to deal with. But if I ever did, now I know the story and I know how to get past it. But
If your question was, do I invest into courses that better me? Yeah, I do.
sure.
I do that. Yeah, yeah. But they're with people that are not very well known.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I believe they're more accessible. So I like picking their brain,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
to get to actually have a conversation with Andy or Ed Milet like that, it's kind of hard. But I like to look at the underdogs that are doing things.
That's awesome. I heard a quote the other day, and I'm sitting here writing it down, trying to remember exactly how it went. But I think it touched on what you were saying. It says the biggest failure in moving forward is giving up what you want, giving up what the goal is for what you want now. I'm pretty sure is
Mhm.
how it said. And
Instant gratification.
yeah, and if that's not more going on right now in this day and age than ever before, I mean it has to be. Can't think of any other time in the world where it was more satisfying now than waiting.
Yeah.
And being a business owner, I mean, I'm sure you understand that. That's definitely part of it.
Mhm.
Um, so what's the goal? What's the goal for MBS? I know we talked about a little bit. Um, Again, we talked a little bit, so everyone understands why I keep saying that. We
Yeah.
talked a little bit before we started recording. Um,
Mhm.
so um, where are you currently at, and what's the focus on moving forward? I mean, what's the scale?
So currently where we're at right now, we're working on individual clients. Just, getting with the community, helping the individual take back their life by taking back their mental, physical, and emotional health. Um, and that's kind of where we are now, but we felt we were thinking too small. And we wanted to take this into bigger scale. So we want to attack the corporate world, corporate wellness. So we're kind of moving into that industry and getting with different departments and educating people on the importance of their nutritional health. And the way we market it to our business is the byproduct of your business success is based on the happiness and life satisfaction of your employees at home. And people don't see that as a connection, but people come to work from home, and they're carrying the emotions there. So if we could solve the emotions there, we could create the mental space for them to actually be present during work. And the average employee works 3 to 4 hours out of an 8 hour workday because they're doing little things. The mental capacity of most people can't focus for 8 hours at a time. So we promise efficiency by focusing on the mental health aspect and the emotional aspect at home, and increasing profits from there. Another goal for the future is a nonprofit retreat center, where
Hmm.
people could actually say, I'm not having a good month and I need a whole month there, to take care of my health. And the only thing that they would have to cover is the food expenses. But the location and the teachers and everything will be at their leisure and at their disposal. Um, we want to get into school systems. We want to change the
That's where
foundation
it's
of it.
at. I was really hoping
Yeah.
you were going to talk about that, dude. I don't mean to cut you off, but
No, no, no.
I'm
Go ahead.
very, very hard on the school systems right now and what they're doing and educating with their kids. And I'm nervous of that. I mean, like I said, I've got 4 years until Will starts
Yeah.
doing some kind of preschool, kindergarten stuff. And I've told Amanda, I said, if and I don't know what Miami's
Homeschool.
like down there with
Mm-hmm.
COVID and what's going on down there right now.
Mm-hmm.
So do you know if the kids are wearing masks, or what's the COVID protocol down there?
They are. They just released a thing saying that they're going to get the option to parents that the kids don't have to wear masks.
Okay.
I'm not anti-vax. I'm not anti-mask. If you want to wear it, you wear it. That is completely,
Yeah.
I'm not against it. Your belief is your belief. Who am I to tell you you're wrong?
Right.
But I do think one of the things that we might see later down the line is social cues. Just because we're covering our
Yep.
faces, we're not going to be able to communicate. And there is a huge increase in kid and social anxiety for
Yep.
children. And you know, as much as I know this is a pandemic and everything like that, it's going to cause more harm than it might cause good. And I know people don't agree with that, but that's just my 2 cents on it. I think we need to implement something for everyone to feel comfortable and nobody to judge anyone, and kind of move forward and swallow our ego if we have to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't want to turn this COVID. I was just curious
Yeah.
so we could understand what you guys are saying and what I'm saying because of what you're going through in your local school district and mine. But so
Mm-hmm.
we're not there to having required masks this year here. They did last year.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing you said where it's like the parents can decide if the kids have to wear them or not. Gosh, I
Yeah.
don't know if I agree with that either. Like, because now you're just gonna have kids that do and kids that don't, and then there's gonna be judgments and different
Yeah.
mental. I don't know. I guess I hadn't thought about that, about what that would do. That might even be worse. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And
Um,
it's kind of unfortunate because I ended up talking, we've been having a couple meetings with teachers to see how we could kind of get into the school board, if the school board's even willing to support teachers, which a lot are not. So
yeah,
that's going to be the biggest thing. So we're thinking if that's going to be the case, we're just going to make a very affordable program for teachers in the hundreds, like low hundreds, so that any teacher could get into the program, just to kind of support. And I messaged this teacher, and the response I got, it was just heartbreaking to hear that. He goes, I told him, hey, look, we're really trying to get this program into school system. He goes, the school doesn't give a fuck about, like, just cursing and saying,
huh,
good luck with that. And it's like, they never tried anything for us. They don't care about us. And I'm like, brother, I don't know why you're getting angry at me. I'm here trying to fight in your corner. And, you know, I want to hear you out. I'm trying to understand your pain so I could help solve it and fight with you.
yeah,
And
I'm
he's
on your
like,
side.
there's no chance. There's no hope for this, that, you know, we get dirt and we're treated like dirt. And I'm like, and he literally said, look, I'm not interested in speaking to you because there's no hope in getting this for me. And I was like,
Wow.
it's unfortunate that there's some teachers out there that think like that, you know, when there's people out there like me actually trying to fight for them and their
Yeah,
benefits. Because I understand that, you know, this future is dependent upon teachers. If we don't have good teachers or mentally sane teachers, then our children are going to raise up learning whatever they're more with their teachers and in school than they are with their parents.
right.
And we want to make sure that everyone's getting the adequate amount of mental health that they need, mental health support that they need, because like I said at the beginning, everything starts with the mind.
Yeah, yeah. So to finish that thought, I had told Amanda if things continue where they're going, where I see them going right now, 100%. Either we'll find a private school. I've even had talks with buddies of like, why don't we just come together? There's a couple of my buddies that are teachers, and we'll just pay his salary with all the parents, and he can teach our kids, you know, or have some type of structure that way. Um, but yeah, I going back to what you're talking about with getting in schools, I think. Do you follow Eric Thomas? ET?
Et
ET.
yes.
So
Yep.
that's a lot of what he's done is he's structured an entire program for teachers. And when I'd heard about that, it like really touched me of man, like if there is a change and if there is positivity and if there is energy that needs to be focused anywhere, it's in schools.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the guy that couldn't wait to get out of school, didn't want to
Yeah.
do any college. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I screwed off for 2 years in middle school and high school, and but I really believe if you're going to put focus in anywhere in our society, if it's not the schools, I don't even know what conversation we're having.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think like I said, it's our future. This is they are our future. Our
Yeah,
kids are our future, and we need to make the change now before it's too late. So I'm huge on mental health, and you know, being a soon to be dad, I did want to make, you know, it's the possibilities with MBS are honestly limitless because
sure.
it applies to everybody, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Those are the three things we face on a day-to-day basis. Um, I've even gone as far as thinking about creating programs of how to show people to be better parents, how to be more involved. I actually had a client that I got the idea from because I helped her out with the communication to her daughter. And that was a huge success because, just a little backstory, her daughter would not like to wear socks in the house.
Hmm.
And she'll walk around, and Cuban psychology says if you don't wear socks and the floor is cold, you're going to get sick.
Okay.
Um, So I explained to her, I'm like, have you ever asked your daughter why she doesn't like to wear socks? And she goes, no, she just has to listen to me. And I go, just ask her. So she asked her daughter, and her daughter goes, it makes my feet sweat and I feel nasty and I feel disgusting. So when she came back to me, I go, look, in your efforts to actually help your daughter, you're causing her discomfort and pain. How does that make you feel? And she goes, I never thought I was doing that. I thought I was just helping her.
Yeah.
Now she goes, she created the shift in the conversation with her daughter, that now she's like, my daughter comes to me home from school and tells me everything. I've had the best relationship with my daughter. She's so loving. She even talks to her stepdad with respect. She's more engaged with him. She's asking, mommy, can I help you with this? And I was like, and that's the thing with most people, in their efforts to think that they're doing something right, they could actually be doing more damage. So I thought about creating programs for parents, um, that could teach them communication skills between the children and stuff like that. And that's one thing I do want to speak to my son about. Like, most people don't agree with this. When I say at a very young age, I want to speak to my son about anxiety and depression. I want to teach him fundamentally, like, these are things that you are going to encounter in life, but doesn't mean there's something wrong with you.
Right.
Um, Other things like that.
Well, I'll let me
Go
jump in real quick. I don't know if you knew, my dad actually committed suicide a couple years ago with,
mm,
he was heavily depressed, bipolar. I mean, he had everything that they could diagnose him with, right? To put him on
mm,
medications. And then he was up and down and up and down. And that went on for years. And then he ended up, he actually, there's like a big hill and a cliff in the middle of town, and he actually
mm,
drove his car off of it. And that's how he took his own life. But, and my thought was always, and I grew up this way. I don't know about you, but I grew up with, like, it's almost shameful to think that you would have depression. I mean, it's such a
mm,
negative thing.
mm.
And, and I've had like a couple little, you know,
Bouts of it.
yeah, like nothing severe. I've had a
Mm,
couple times where I'm just like, I feel like I'm just existing, but like nothing's
mm.
going on,
Yeah.
and luckily I've been able to pull myself out of it, so far in my life. I mean, I can't see the
Mm,
future, but, um, when you were saying you want to talk to your son about it, it's like, well, what's the alternative? Like
mm,
him go through it and have those issues and have those struggles. And then you're like, yeah, dude, I was going to tell you about this, but you were too young at the time.
yeah.
Like, I just don't understand the conversation. And again, a little more backstory on at my dad's funeral, his family, well, I don't even know if it was his family, but he was remarried twice after my mom. They were married for 30 years. And then he had married two girls within like 2 years or whatever.
Mm,
And,
mm,
and she didn't want to, the current wife didn't want to agree that he was depressed because she
mm.
thought it put like this negative connotation on him. Right.
Yeah.
And, and so they didn't want to talk about depression at the funeral because they didn't
Mm,
want the kids to hear it. And I'm
mm.
like, what better time to have this conversation? And if you haven't
Exactly.
already had the conversation with your kids before the funeral, what is wrong with you? Like that was
Hmm.
my thought going into it. So I don't know, man. I think you're right. I think that conversation needs to happen.
That's what I'm saying. I'm very unorthodox when it comes to that. And then, like, I'm going to tell him everything. Like, anxiety is this feeling that you don't have control over. Depression is this, but it doesn't mean you're stuck there. And I've had people message me, well, you've never been diagnosed with clinical depression. Okay, so explain to me not driving my car for X amount of months and not being able to know my wife's name and writing notes to each of my family members. So now you're going to invalidate my depression. Like,
Yeah.
this is the problem.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't give you that power to do that. Right.
exactly. But it's like, okay, if I did go to a doctor, I'm pretty sure I would have been diagnosed with something just to put a label and give me a pill.
Exactly.
And it's unfortunate that these people are not curious enough to explore different possibilities. Like, have you done blood work, like extensive blood work that could tell you, do you have a hormone imbalance? Because hormone imbalances plays huge in that. And for me, it's like, if I ever feel depression, I always say, have I done everything to get out of this situation? And if I haven't, then keep looking, but your answer's in there somewhere.
Hmm.
And more enough, it's, well, you spent time with your wife for the past 2 weeks because you've been working too hard. Take her out to dinner. Fill that soul up. You haven't been working out. You haven't been stretching your body because you've just been consuming work. Fill your body up. well, you haven't taken a break, so you're mentally burned out and you're not stimulating your mind in a healthy way. Take the time and relax your mind. And unless I focus on all three pillars and complete them, and my depression is still there, okay, let's figure something else out. Okay. But if I haven't gone through those, I can't just say, well, I'm depressed and this is who I am. And that's the end of the story. Like, no, like, be curious enough to figure out what's going on and don't stop until you get that answers. And like you said, in my family growing up, it was the same thing. You don't talk about mental health. You don't tell people that you have problems because you're seen as weak. You don't and this is unfortunate, but like growing up, like I'm not feeling good. I'll get that out of your head. That's gonna make you sick if you think like that. Like that's things I was told. And it was like, well, I'm already sick. Like, there's obviously something wrong. So I think it's a conversation that needs to be needed, and the avoidance of it, and though they think they're helping by not telling the kids that, is actually causing more imbalances in the future of kids not understanding or able to cope with the emotions that they're going to be facing.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I'm going to do with my son is he needs to understand that I'm not perfect and I don't know everything and I don't have all the answers, and I'm figuring this out too, and I growing up, I looked at my parents and they were perfect, couldn't do any wrong, knew the answers, knew everything. And then going, fast forwarding to where we're at now in the situation with my dad, it was like, I feel like if he would have just told us, like, guys, I'm not perfect, and take pressure off of him, and not only have us understand that, but he put a lot of pressure on himself because of who he thought he needed to be. Yeah. And I'm not making that mistake with my kid. I know that.
Yeah. And I love that. And, and exactly what you said, I ended up doing that with my mom a couple of years ago. I was just in a dark place and I just wanted to get out of it. So I really didn't give two shits about it. But my mom said something to me and I looked at her and I go, what happened to you as a child that you are the way you are with me? And my mom just started breaking down crying. And from that moment on, I forgave her for everything I did. And then there was another time where, being the youngest, I never felt like I got the love from my dad that I wanted. Wasn't never necessarily true. It's just the way he expressed love was the way he loved. Like I held so much aggression towards him for that. But then I told him one day and I just yelled at him and I go, you don't love me like you love my brother or my sister. And he just starts breaking down and crying. He goes, you don't think I love you? He goes, the reason why I don't worry about you or I'm not on top of you is because I know you're going to be the best one out of everyone. And until I understood him, I wasn't able to forgive him. So that's one thing I teach my clients a lot is understand before you, and understanding is where you can ultimately forgive. So going through my sickness, I had to understand my past and my parents' past and my grandparents' past of understanding that mental health and nutritional health was never implied in my life. And that would lead me to where I am today. So it makes sense of why I am. So I understood that and I understood the pain that I was going through. So I was able to break myself of all the childhood traumas that I had because I was curious enough to go in there and question it and truly understand my pain. And in understanding it, I was able to forgive my dad, my mom, my grandma, my great grandma that I never met, my great grandma that I never met, all because I just understood that these were things that were never brought into my family. And my mom told me something very profound. She goes, each generation takes what they didn't like from the last and teaches it to their kids. So my mom told me the reason why she was so loving with me, my brother, my sister, is because she never felt that from her dad. And then like my dad, the way he is with me is because he didn't, my dad is the reason why I'm a business owner today. And I'm so grateful for him for that, because seeing him have his own business growing up and being there at our baseball games and stuff like that. And my mom too, and she supported him financially through that, building his business. But they struggled coming from Cuba. They struggled financially. So my dad didn't want that in her family. So when my dad came to the United States, got with my mom supported him for the first 3 years of business. My dad was able to turn his business in the first year into $80,000 worth of sales. This is back in like the 1990s. The second year, 1.2 million. The third year, 2.4 million in sales. And it was like he was able to give my family that freedom that he never had in Cuba. So I just want to be the next step in generation of what has my family lineage never taught. Yep. I'm going to be that change in moving forward in my life.
Yeah, you're going to break that pattern. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I guess I'd never really thought about that, where like you're saying, it just goes back, probably just goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, almost the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Appreciate it.
So I guess, I mean, we kind of talked about goals.
Mm.
We're about at time. We're about an hour and a half already, I think. So,
Yeah.
that gone super fast. Well, dude, I mean, what is there anything else you want to touch on? I do want to get, your contact information. If someone ever wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do it? I know you can schedule calls on your website. I know they can. I mean, there's a plethora of ways to get in contact with you. But
Yeah.
is there anything else you want to touch on before we kind of wrap this up and go through contact info?
No, man. It's just if anyone takes anything away from this, is just be curious with yourself on and the best version. I always tell people about that, and that's one thing I just want to make sure someone takes away from this podcast is just be curious enough with yourself to know who the best version of yourself is.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think you wrapped it up. That's the best thing you could say at the end, man. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a couple hours later than us, so it's a little later with you than it is with us. I wish you the best of luck with your wife and your kid. Keep in contact with me and let me know, make sure everything goes smooth. I know we're going to do stuff in the future. I feel drawn to you when you talk. You've got that personality that just brings people in. So keep that going, man. Keep that energy up. And fatherhood will have its trials, dude, but keep positive, keep moving forward. I love it.
I expect it, man. Like I'm a big envisioner, so I know I've already planned trips and everything in my head to the mountains and stuff like that, hunting with my son. I've visualized and I know I'm going to manifest it. So it's just a matter of time.
Awesome. Okay, man. Well, it's good talking to you. We'll kind of wrap this up. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for spending the last, I think we're about at an hour and a half. So hopefully you've taken something from this. If you haven't, rewatch it because there's plenty of stuff in here to write down, take notes. There was a lot of information on there. Please, please, please go follow Shane. Go follow the MBS Repair. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
So MBS Repair, the website, Instagram, Facebook. What else do you got?
Yeah, mostly on the website, you'll find all the links to contact me. So you'll find my email. You'll find there's even a number to text message if you have any questions. That one of my assistants handles that. Yeah, it has the link to my calendar. If you're curious enough to know the best version of yourself, we can definitely help you out with that.
That's awesome. Okay, guys, thanks for being here. If you liked it, hit the like button, share this with everyone that needs to hear it. Keep the growth that we've been having. We've been growing extremely fast, and it's humbling to think that there's this many people that take the time out of their day to listen to the guests that we bring on, and I really appreciate it. I love you guys, and we'll talk to you next week.